ICS Arabia, and today's guest is Abdulrahman Alqabandi. He's from Kuwait, and I will talk with him tonight about various topics. I hope you enjoy them. Welcome, Abdulrahman.
Hello. Yes, thank you. Thank you for the lovely introduction. Yeah, I'm really excited to be part of this, I believe, interview series that you're doing, and
Sure.
yeah, I cannot wait to share, my knowledge here to your audience.
Yeah, sure. You're welcome. So, a quick summary about Abdulrahman. He's a browser security researcher, and he works currently at Microsoft, and he's accomplished many tasks, many projects, and let's see some of the projects. Okay.
Yeah.
So tell us, Abdulrahman, when did you start with browser security?
Well, with browser security specifically, if you look at my screen here, the first bug I've ever found was in Firefox, and it was reported, I believe, like early 2015 or maybe mid 2015, and then eventually fixed by September. So I would say I started officially because before you find any bugs, you have to learn a lot about the browser. Especially different browsers have completely different, ways of working in the backend. And so I would say early 2015 is probably when I really hit my stride, and I found my first bug, and it was a pretty bad bug. For example, this one, it's a Firefox same origin policy bypass, which basically means that if you visit my web page and I'm an attacker, then I can read your twitter.com, for example. If you're logged in, I can read all of your information from twitter.com or any other website by you just visiting a single website. This is not allowed usually. This was given a high severity and a CVE as well. But at the time, I felt like I got lucky and I didn't really, deserved it. So I kept trying to prove to myself that I am able to find bugs, and the rest is history.
Cool. So, I mean, could you tell us how do you approach finding a bug? Like, how do you think your way? If you like
okay,
to share.
so
Yes.
yes, so in the browser security world, there are two main types of bugs or categories that's been formed, and it's not official, but this is how I like to think of things. So there's like memory issue bugs, which means it's a bug that causes the process to crash in some way. So that's called a memory issue bug. And then you have design issue bugs, right? So for example, this bug, this first one, it's not a memory issue, and it has nothing to do with the memory of the process. It has to do with the design. So the fetch API, for example, and we can see the write-up here.
Okay.
I noticed that if you send this specific configuration alongside a redirection URL, then it would be fooled into thinking that it's actually grabbing data from localhost and actually give you data from whatever is redirected. So this is a design issue. They did whoever created or was modifying or implementing the fetch API did not consider the possibility that somebody might give it this specific configuration, and it will in essence fool the fetch API into fetching remote content that you're not supposed to. And so going back to your question, how do I approach it? My main thing that I'm known for is design issues, not memory issues. So like memory issue, buffer overflow, all of these good stuff. I'm not known for that. I'm known mostly for design. Although now, after being part of Microsoft, I've been exposed to a lot more. Like I'm not just doing design issues. Like I'm also looking at memory issues, looking at code, all of that good stuff. But this is how I started with design issues. And usually, for like I'll use this again as an example. All I did was I read the documentation. So MDN is very invaluable here. So all I did, I was just reading how to implement the Fetch API as if I'm a developer. And by the way, this is like I began as a developer before I got into any of this stuff. So as if I'm a developer, I'm learning how does the Fetch API work? Can I have any example codes? Yeah, here's an example. I'll copy paste it. I'll create a small file and locally, and then I just modify it and mess around with it and see what I can do. So the way I approach bugs is by learning first as much as I can, and then applying what I learned in creative ways. So I'll let my creativity, just sort of lead me into doing things, right? So I would I knew about the redirection, the 302 redirection HTTP response. And so I was like, what happens if I give it a redirection? And it worked. But before I found this, I tried probably 20, 30 other things that didn't work, right? So this is essentially what I do and hope that I get lucky. These days, though, it's more about automation. It's more about fuzzing. It's more about saving time, because this type of approach can take a lot of time because it's a manual thing. You have to, but it's the benefit of it is that you learn a lot, even if you don't find a bug. So even if I didn't find a bug, at least I know what a Fetch API is. And so, yeah, and this is a constant thing because the JavaScript API keeps growing, the web keeps growing. So I have an endless supply of things to read and learn about.
Cool. That's quite a lengthy explanation. I appreciate that.
I wanted to be as specific as I can, just because a lot of people do ask me the same question. So I wanted to really be, specific.
Sure. I really appreciate it, and thanks for the information. So, so you said you look for design issues or you look for design errors. Is this similar to the, like, you mean the logical errors, like what they call? Yeah, logical errors. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you use particular tools to do this, or any tools you prefer to do while looking for vulnerabilities?
Tools, it's mostly, like I said, it's mostly resources, just reading. For example, like the process of learning, I go through like previous bugs. So for example, this is the website for Mozilla where you report bugs. So this is where I actually, 6 years ago, wow, I thought it was 5 years ago, but now I just got surprised. It's 6 years ago. Wow, time goes by quick. Anyway, but you can see here, it's like you can think of this like a forum almost, where you go and you report your findings. And if it's a security issue, then it will be hidden and only viewed by the security team of Mozilla. So this is where I originally reported my findings. And you can read the thread in this and see the responses from actual Mozilla employees. And this is where you can learn a lot about how they think, about what they check. And this is what I do. I and not only from my bugs, I would go to and search anything here, right? So I would search like, let's see, universal XSS, for example. Of course, you can do an advanced search, which will be much better. But like, here's an example. Oh, this is a universal XSS, which means that it's a browser bug that enables you to execute JavaScript in any website. So you can go here and read about it. And it's like, okay, it's possible, blah, blah, blah. And you just read, and you read the whole thread. and you gain knowledge this way, because sometimes you will find really, like, it's like if you want to find gold, right? You have to go through a lot of sand and a lot of non-gold before you find nuggets, right, of
Yep.
gold. So this is the same thing. It's the same process. And as far as tools,
Yeah.
I just use, just host, like local host, however you want to do it, through IIS or PHP or Python, simple server. But also I use the built-in web development tools.
Right.
So you can access it from here, and you can, like, for example, you can see it will autofill stuff, and you can do things here, so pretty much that's all you need as far as how I used to do it.
Mhm.
Today there's more tools available for the second type, which is to find memory issues. And the main way you do that is with what's called fuzzing, right? So fuzzing is basically you just create a program that will run the browser and feed it pseudo-random inputs. It will like create a HTML page, for example, randomly, and then feed it into the browser and allow the browser to render it, and then it will see if it crashes. There are, and this is like a very basic description. There are like other things like libfuzzer, for example, which works in just it's an instrumental, I think, fuzzer, which means you need access to the source code and you have to build it in a certain way. And you can then create fuzzers that target specific functions within the source code. And so it's a whole new topic. I don't want to get too deep into fuzzing, but these would be the main tools for browser security. But yeah, definitely knowledge is your biggest asset as far as browser security. So always read.
Yeah. So I can see that there is a difference between web security tools, like they use for discovery and like and port scanning, and I think browser security is somehow different than web security. Am I saying it? Am I accurate?
I mean,
yeah.
We can talk about this later, but yeah, like it is different, but there have been instances where they can share the same bugs. So, for example, one of the main bugs, like the first bugs that occurred in the new Chromium Edge, which you can see here, I'm using it. I actually found the first 2 bugs, I believe, or first 3, and these bugs actually used a combination of both. So it used an XSS in a website in order to gain an advantage and a privilege escalation that led into a vulnerability in the browser. So the answer mostly is yes, but not always. Yeah, sometimes they can combine. Yeah.
Okay, so let's go ahead and check up your website, please.
Sure.
Yeah. This is Abdulrahman's website. He puts all his work there, and you can, with really excellent write-ups. I really enjoy them, and you can see they are really have some depth in them. Okay. I read most of your vulnerabilities that you have found, and you noticed that you managed to find vulnerabilities in Firefox and Microsoft browser too, and Chrome for Google.
Yes.
Which one you enjoyed most, or I mean, the 3 companies, do they? I mean, are the vulnerabilities are the same there, or the way? I mean, the design, like you're looking for design. How different are they from the design, or are they similar?
As a bug hunter, because as a bug hunter, Hunter purely, it was the most fun and the most worth the effort was to find bugs in Firefox. Mainly because the security boundary is different than Chromium, and design issues usually, or a lot of the times for me, involved user interaction. So for example, it's not just load the page, but for example, load the page and click this or drag this. So it will involve more user interaction, for example. And I found that in Google did not really, like if they saw a user interaction too much, they will just say that, oh, this bug isn't as severe. But for Mozilla, for example, they actually cared. They didn't care that, oh, you require an extra click or an extra thing here and there. So they are more, I guess, lenient as far as that goes. So I would find a lot of bugs, and I would get, good bounties for a lot of the bugs more often in Firefox than I would in Google Chrome. And it could be just because of the nature of the types of bugs I'm finding. And there's no ill will towards Google Chrome or anything. This is just, their security boundary, and this is what they have to stick to. But yeah, this was my personal preference. Obviously, before I became a Microsoft employee, the new Chromium Edge browser was my new favorite, because it's a new browser. And I was able to find good bugs in them, and they were actually paying double. And they still do. They pay double than they used to in the old browser, Microsoft Edge browser. So yeah, so I would say, yeah, Mozilla first, Microsoft second, and then the least would be Chrome.
But Mozilla, do they pay or they don't?
Of course, yeah, because
they do.
They do pay, and they pay actually pretty good for in comparison. I would say you can make more technically in Microsoft Edge, Chromium, because they pay so much. But they would pay for, let's say, lesser bugs like medium severity. Mozilla will pay pretty good. But I would say mostly, in my experience with Chrome, medium severity, like I'll give you numbers. Medium severity bugs in Chrome can go up to, I think, 2,000, last I checked. But most of them, from my experience at least, is like $500. So with Mozilla, most of mine are like 1,000 or $2,000 for moderate severity bugs. So like and look, it's not like I feel like I have to say this. I don't really do bug hunting for money mainly. It's really a lot about fun and learning, but also it's nice to be compensated for the time that you put in, right? So like sometimes I have to actually force myself, and it's not a fun thing. Like I have to sit down and really try my best to find a bug. And it's really nice to get compensated, So that's why it's important to look into these, and that's why you can also see a lot of my bugs are in Mozilla, like most of them.
Yeah,
like 50 bugs, yeah, compared to 17 here.
Yeah, cool. 50 bucks, but all of them got a new CVE number, or?
I don't think so. The CVE can be random sometimes. Like sometimes they give it to CVE, sometimes not. I don't know what the determination is. But yeah, if they give it and I know about it, it should be in the about page. Maybe they like for example, let me show you one example here.
Yep.
Like this bug, I reported it 2016. But it got a CVE in 2018,
Wow.
2 years later.
2 years.
Yeah, so it's like, it's very random, and I don't know what the process is. So yeah,
Yeah, I counted in your website, I counted them, the CVEs, as 34, maybe, more or less. And I found 17 of them are not fixed. So may I know why they're not fixed?
let's see here. So for this remote code execution not fixed, usually it's because either it's too difficult to fix it. So bugs usually should take pretty quick to fix it. Like usually companies, vendors try to fix it within, like depending on the severity, but within like 3 months, it should be fixed. However, sometimes, like I've had instances where bugs took 2 years, 3 years to fix, and I didn't get a bounty until 3 years later. You know, like,
Yeah.
and usually it seems like it's because it's a difficult thing to fix. It could sometimes be like such a complex fix that nobody's really working on it, or sometimes, for example, I had one bug with the Chrome where they thought it was like somebody came in and just gave it a low severity, but it's actually like at least a medium severity, if not high. And so when it was given a low severity and it was difficult to fix, then people just ignored it and didn't bother fixing it, because it's a complex issue, plus its severity is low, so the priority is low.
All right.
For me personally, I don't mind waiting. I can wait. I don't get mad if they, so long as there's communication.
Does no fixing means no payment, or they're not?
Oh, no. Not fixed just means that it hasn't been fixed yet, but it's being worked on. Won't fix, I don't put them here. There's two different types. There's like not fixed yet, means that it's being worked on. Won't fix means like the vendor looked at the vulnerability and said that, yeah, we are not going to fix this. These types of bugs I don't put here.
Oh, I see.
These are called invalid bugs. So invalid bugs can be either won't fix is the tag, or they could be duplicate, which I don't really talk about or put here.
Cool. So we talked about why they're not fixed, and we understood why. There are actually many reasons you just mentioned. So let's talk about, could you go to the main page, please?
Yeah, sure. And just one thing before we leave here. I haven't updated this in a while, by the way, so it could be really inaccurate.
Yeah,
a lot of it.
I'll ask you this. I wrote this in my notes. So what if they're fixed and you haven't updated them?
Yeah. I'll probably do this after the stream, just so in case people go to my website, they can see a fresh version.
One observation I noticed. You said some of the vendors, the 3 vendors, lowered the severity of one of the bugs that you have found. I mean, why they lowered it? Like, did you make a mistake by putting it as a wrong label, or what was wrong?
You see, it's a very interesting topic that you bring up. Severity, sometimes it's not as clear, right? So it's can be a very subjective opinion. Yeah, so I'll give you an example. Like one of the bugs that really like took a while to fix is this. This is basically, I'll describe you the scenario. I can give you a web page and it's malicious. You go to it and it asks you to hold down the enter button, right?
Yep.
To verify that you're human. And by doing that, I can read it's random, but I can read your local files in your computer. Now, to me, this seems like I'm biased, but at least it could be a medium severity bug, right? So this opinion wasn't shared when I reported it to Chrome. When I reported it to Firefox, they fixed it and they gave me medium, right? When I reported it to Microsoft, this was before I was an employee, they gave me a medium severity or whatever is the equivalent and they paid me a bounty as well, both Mozilla and Microsoft. But when I reported it to Chrome, they set it as low severity.
Oh, I
So
see.
you can see that every vendor for the same bug has a different opinion sometimes.
That's interesting.
And so, yeah, and so it was ignored for, I talk about this here, but eventually it got fixed, and I also got a bounty, even though technically I publicly disclosed it, which I shouldn't do, but I waited like 6 months. So it's like, I mean, at this point, it's my responsibility to do that, right?
Yep.
And so, as you can see, it's because it's just subjective and it depends on the bug.
Actually,
and also, sorry to interrupt, but if there's no precedent, so if there's no bug previously that you can look at and point to and be like, oh, this bug is the same as this,
exactly.
right? Then it's like up in the air. It could be low, it could be medium, it could be high, depending on if the person, you know, feels well that day or not.
Yep. And sometimes, well, my study, you know, when I did research in ICS security, actually, I researched why some, like, you know, vendors or whoever, they report the wrong severity. By, for example, they can report it as low, where in fact it's high. And for example, a very critical bug was reported. I can't remember, but you know what I mean. Like, who has the say in deciding if a vulnerability is low or medium or high? That's what made me ask. Like, who's the expert here? Like the vendor or the customer or the client? And especially if the vendor or who's reporting or writing the CVE has no clue about the other aspect that could make a vulnerability high or low. I hope I'm clear in explaining this.
Like it is very difficult. I've seen, you know, the CVSS score calculator. I've messed around with it, and from what I can tell, I don't know if it's so difficult to create a unified calculator for severity for every type of bug, because it's just too big. You cannot. It's a difficult problem. Somebody has to like have a full, you know, I don't know, PhD thesis about this, because it's like, how do you unify across all types, like web browsers, ICSs, you know, like all of this, you cannot. So I think it should be, like, for example, I think it should be every type of vendor can have their own, you know, bar. You know, they can, if they think it's low, then it's low, and you know, it's difficult to argue with the vendor because they come from an authority, right?
Especially, you know,
so I don't know.
When I researched this topic, I noticed that the people who scored these vulnerabilities, they didn't know, or they're not expert or specialist in ICS. So that's why they made mistakes, like you said. So I proposed an alternative scoring system, like rather than using the traditional CVE, which is also, you know, proof of concept. It's not standard yet, but I proposed an alternative way to rank ICS vulnerabilities by considering some ICS factors, aspects, like what security matters to ICS, because IT and ICS, they are different worlds, you know. So what here secure could be risky on the other, for the other. So exactly, I think I agree with you when you said they make a metric for every domain independently.
Yeah, one example, you bring a good point, because for example, in the browser, A denial of service bug. So for example, if I make a page that makes your browser crash,
Yep.
That's not a bug. That's not a security bug. That's a normal bug, but not a security bug. We don't consider it a security issue unless it's a persistent denial of service, which means that I can make your browser never work at all unless you reinstall it. Then it's a security bug. But if I make it crash one time, it's not a bug. But I would imagine an ICS situation. And by the way, maybe you can give a little background to whoever doesn't understand what ICS is. But an ICS, I would imagine denial of service bugs are probably more severe and are a security issue. Exactly. Because if you have a piece of hardware that's like reading, some sensitive something like the heat or whatever, and you can make it break, then yeah, that's a problem. Exactly. So I totally agree with you, like 100%.
Cool. So could we